Yeah, I'll always be a metalhead. Nothing can take that away from me.
Right.
I mean, not jail, not people, not religion, not anything. I'll always be a metalhead. Metalhead leaves you all out.
You're listening to the Great Metal Debate Podcast.
Welcome again to yet another Great Metal Debate Podcast review. Today we got a special one. It's a slamming brutal death metal band that every Slam fan should know. Maybe you don't know the name of this band, but you've definitely seen the horrific album cover for their 2007 debut, Uterovaginal Insertion of Extirpated Anomalies. I actually just bought the long sleeve shirt for that album on a Reality Fade a few months back. But this band is pronounced Cephalotripsy, and this is their sophomore album released 17 years after the debut. This record is titled Epigenetic Neurogenesis. Gee, if only we can get Vital Remains to finally release their first album in 17 years that has allegedly been completed for 8 years. Anyway, I just realized that this is the third band in a row that I have reviewed that starts with the letter C. First it was Cemetery Rapist, then it was Crown of Anguish, and now Cephalotripsy? I swear that was not planned. I have never had the privilege to see these guys play live. However, I did meet the vocalist Angel Achala last year when he did live vocals for Devourment. I of course got my picture with him, and I interviewed the guys in Devourment the day before. Feel free to go check that out. Here's a not so fun fact for you listeners. A cephalotripsy is a procedure that involves crushing the head of a stillborn fetus in the womb to facilitate delivery. Obviously, this album cover is a lot more family-friendly than the former. But let's get into the music. The first single that was released 2 months ago was the album title track, which has Maddie Way from Abominable Putridity x Pathology as a guest feature. Speaking of Pathology, the first few seconds of the song reminded me of the same guitar chugs in the beginning of the song Tyrannical Decay, but that album had Jonathan Hubbard from I Declare War on vocals. Maddie, on the other hand, usually has a very distinct vocal tone, but I honestly could not tell when he was on the mic. Both Angel and Maddie gurgle and pig squeal their way through this whole track, and I can't tell you who's who. Despite the song being accompanied by a lyrical video, it does not sound like they are saying any of those words. But hey, who the fuck listens to brutal death metal and expects to hear words? I sure don't. I listen for the brutality, and the more disgusting it sounds, the better. I accidentally had my phone playlist on shuffle when I heard this album, so these tracks might be a little out of order. Alpha Terrestrial Polymorph and Induced Primordial Regression were the next two songs I heard, and geez, what's the deal with every band I've been reviewing lately having the word primordial in the song titles? That's just a little phenomenon I've noticed over the past few months. But then I heard the song Excision of Self, which has another guest feature, this time with Ivan Toyolkin from the Russian death metal bands Insect Inside and Nauseating. Entrenched in Fluids of Enigmatic Predation was yet another heavy hitter, along with Ulcerated Mass of Pestilent Engorgement, which features Clayton Mead from Condemned. I have been a longtime fan of Condemned, but I also couldn't tell when Clayton was on the mic either. All I know is that it sounded every bit as brutal as the rest of the record. There are no duds on this album, and low-tech non-entity continues to prove my point. Each track is guaranteed to stomp a mud hole in your eardrum's ass. Don't believe me? Then check out the track titled Arcane Rites of the Transdimensional Progeny. So what do I think of this entire album as a whole? It's definitely sick as fuck. Great for working out, great for mosh pits, you name it. Play the shit at your local sporting event, play it in a grocery store, play it in the club, play it at a wedding, play it everywhere and blast it on high volume. I like to crack jokes while I do these reviews, but let's be honest. Was this album really worth the 17-year-long wait? No, it wasn't. And I'll tell you why. See, this album suffers from the same issue as the newest Torsofuck album that came out last year. The reason why Uterovaginal was so good was because it was some of the heaviest shit that money could buy back in 2007. There wasn't any oversaturation in the genre at the time. Bands like this back then were hard to find. Sure, guttural engorgement existed, but there wasn't 100 zillion cephalotripsy copycats yet. So if I'm being real, this album just kinda sounds like everything else out there. It would have probably been another classic had it come out before 2010 or 2015 at the very latest. But now? Aside from it just being balls to the wall, there's nothing overly special about it now in the year 2024. The niche for this type of brutality seems to only be original if it's old. I know, it sounds like a weird critique when I word it that way, but I'm sure someone out there understands what I'm trying to say. It's still really good for what it is though, but just like every slam or brutal death metal record I review on this channel, no matter how great it might be, I can't really rate it higher than a 7 out of 10. As I mentioned at the start of this review, you should be able to buy Cephalotripsy's merch from the website Reality Fade. That's where I got my uterovaginal long sleeve and the orange logo baseball cap. But they of course have some things on Brutal Mind and their Bandcamp page. Be sure to show your support any way you can for these guys. They deserve it.